we are in extreme close-up today because the thing I want to show you is a tiny bit fiddly, but it helps to give a really neat edge at the end of a neckband. So I'm going to show you what I do. So I'm at the point of the cardigan where I finished knitting the neckband, and the next thing to do would be to bind off all of these stitches. But as you can see, the very edge just here, it's not messy, but it's not as neat as I'd like. So I'm going to show you a little trick that will just help neaten things up a bit. Now everything is still live on the needles. I haven't done anything special there. What I am going to do is switch my right hand needle out for a crochet hook. This is, I think it's 3.5 mil. It might be 3 mil. It's worn off. I'm knitting with 4 mil needles. It's just the crochet hook I had handy. I wouldn't use one bigger than the needles you're knitting with, but whatever size you've got will work fine. Or you can do it with your needle tip, your right needle tip if you prefer. I just prefer a crochet hook for this. So what we're going to do is, having finished the last wrong side row and turned the work, I am going to pick up some extra stitches along this row, and then I'll immediately bind them off. And when I get to the other end, I'll do the same thing. I'll pick up stitches and immediately bind them off. And that will just make the bound off edge start here and go up and then turn the corner around, and it gives it a really nice, neat finish. Picking up the stitches in the right place can be ever so slightly tricky if you haven't done it before. So I just wanted to do it on video so everyone can be super duper clear exactly what I mean. So the working yarn needs to be at the back of the work for this. And if you look at the edges here, you can see the gaps, 1 stitch in. So I'm going to do exactly what I would do if I was picking up stitches along the side of any other row, which is aiming to pick up 3 stitches for every 4 rows. The first one, I want to make sure it goes right in this corner here, because what I don't want to do is make this corner tight. I want to be able to get a nice point here when I block it. So I'm going to go in here, in the very first stitch. Can you see that gap there? That's where I'm going to go. And then all I'm going to do is loop the working yarn around the crochet hook, pull it through, and pop the stitch immediately on my left needle. So this is going to distort the edge a little bit because it's going to pull everything straight, but once it's all bound off, you'll get a nice sharp corner. Okay, so the next stitch, I want to go right next to it, and I just want to do the same thing again. Pull up a loop and pop it on the left hand needle. Now when I'm picking up stitches, I never worry about mounting them the right way round, because I find it easy to tell if they're the wrong way round or not, and if they are, I just work them through the back loop to mount the next stitch the right way. Okay, third one. Oh, come on yarn, behave. Sometimes fingers are the easiest. Okay, that's 3. So now I'm going to skip a stitch. Skip that one. And I'm going to go here. Come on. That's 4. And looking at the stitches, it looks like 6 stitches is going to be a good number. It is a bit fiddly. And of course you've got the end here, so this stitch is prone to pulling a bit loose, but we don't need to worry about that because we can always tug on it to tighten it up, can't we? Oh. There we go, okay. Right, hopefully I got that all on camera. So you can see now these 6 stitches at the end, and I haven't worried about making them look like pearls, I'm not going to worry about that at the end. I'm just going to treat all these 6 as knit stitches, and then I'll carry on binding off the rest of the ribbing in pattern. So I'm going to start doing that, and then you literally just start knitting as you normally would. This one is very hopefully mounted the right way. So is this one. I'm having a good day, clearly. Immediately bind off. And the next one, immediately bind off. And the next one, immediately bind off. And the next one, immediately bind off. One more. Oh, and drop it. Why wouldn't we do that? Okay. One more and bind off with slightly more success. There we go. Okay, so that's the 6 I've done, and as you can see, it does just give you a neater edge at the bottom there. And that bit there, when I sew the ends in, I'll kind of dock that in there and make it nice and neat. And I think it just gives it a slightly neater edge, especially when the edge of your ribbing is pearl rather than knit. But whichever edge you end on, like if you wanted to use this technique on other patterns, it can look a bit sloppy. I like taking the cast off edge all the way around. So I'm just going to keep going along here. I'm binding off in pattern here, which I always found a little bit more fiddly on the pearl stitches because the working yarn's in the front, and often I will pass the yarn to the back to do the pass over bit and then bring it back to the front for the next stitch. So I just find that a little bit easier. Okay, so now that I've done that, you can start to see it is just turning the corner nice and neatly. I'm going to do these 3 knit stitches and show you again, and then I will hop off the camera and come back when it's time to do the other end. So obviously it will be neater still once I've blocked it, but you can see there it's giving a nice neat edge. I just think that looks a bit more polished than leaving the pearl edge raw. And it's a really easy trick to do. It doesn't take extra yarn, not really. It's so easy to do on any like ribbed neckband, just to give it that extra little bit of polish. Okay, I'll be back at the other end to show picking up stitches on the other end. Okay, so I have bound off all of the side stitches for the neckband, and I'm now at the other end, which I want to make neat just like the other one. So this bit I'm going to do without the crochet hook, hopefully. So what we're going to do is, just like before, we're going to pick up stitches along here, but we're going to do it one at a time this time. And immediately after drawing up a loop, we're going to bind it off without working the stitch. So needle through, loop around, draw it up and bind it off. That's 1. Needle through, loop around, pull it up, bind it off. That's 2. Third one, needle through, loop around, pull it up, bind it off. That's 3. Now again, the ratio we're doing is 3 stitches for every 4 rows. So I'm going to skip the next row and go over here for number 4. And then here is my next one. Number 5. And lastly, number 6. Okay, so you can see there, that's given me a nice neat edge here as well. and when I break the yarn here, I can sew in the end so that that loop, pull that out, so that that loop lies nice and flat, and it just finishes off the row. You can see here, bound off in pattern, we've got a nice neat edge, and if I just going to tuck that end through the loop, just so the stitch doesn't, like a little stitch holder, and just while I get to the other end, because this is enormous. Okay, and you can see here, here's the original, and of course this is the end that's going to sit on the top of the work, so this is the one where I want it to be neatest, because when I button up the cardigan, this flap of the neckband lies on top of the other one. So yeah, that's how it's done. So here's 3 reasons why you might choose this technique over slipping stitches at the ends of rows. Number 1, slipping stitches isn't always straightforward if you're working a stitch pattern other than stockinette. Number 2, if your neckband is already worked and you didn't slip stitches, this is easier than unpicking and redoing. Number 3, this method is technically superior. Slip stitches at each end both face up towards the bound off edge, which means you have a visible join at the second corner. By doing it this way, you have one continuous bound off edge all the way along the neckband with all stitches facing in the same direction.